Sometimes love doesn't look like the movies. It doesn't always show up with grand gestures or romantic words whispered under a starlit sky. Sometimes, love looks like someone who flinches when you get too close, someone who hesitates when you ask how they feel, someone who pulls away not because they don't care, but because they care so much it terrifies them. And I want you to hear this loud and clear. When someone who's avoidant, someone who's spent their whole life running from vulnerability, starts showing up in little ways, responding to your text when they're overwhelmed, making space for you in their routine, maybe even just sitting next to you in silence without bolting, that is huge. That is love in their language. We've all got wounds. We've all got stories that shape the way we give and receive love. And avoidance, they learned early on that opening up wasn't safe. That being vulnerable could mean getting hurt. So they built walls. Not because they don't feel, but because they feel so deeply that protecting themselves became survival. But here's the thing. They don't always stay behind those walls. Sometimes when it's real, when it's you, they start to let the cracks show. They may not say, "I love you" right away, but they'll do something quieter, more powerful. They'll let you in, even just a little. So if you're loving someone who's avoidant, don't look for fireworks. Look for the flickers, the moments where they fight against everything in them that says, "Run," and choose to stay. The way they remember the little things you said, even if they can't always say what they feel. The way they try, even when it's hard, even when it's messy, even when it goes against every protective instinct they've ever known. That effort is love. You don't need someone to love you perfectly. You need someone who's willing to fight for love with you. And if an avoidant is trying, if they're showing up in their own imperfect way, don't miss it. Don't dismiss it. That might be the bravest love of all. Love doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers. And you? You deserve someone who's willing to whisper love, even when it scares them. Because that's not just love. That's transformation. That's healing. That's two people rewriting the story together. When someone has an avoidant attachment style, love rarely comes packaged in the ways we're taught to expect. You won't always get the long, heartfelt texts or the spontaneous "I miss you" calls in the middle of the day. You might not get the obvious signs, the ones movies and social media say you should wait for. But that doesn't mean love isn't there. It just means love is being communicated in a different language, one shaped by fear, protection, and survival. Avoidant individuals often grew up in environments where emotional closeness didn't feel safe. Maybe they were told to toughen up, or learned early that being vulnerable got them ignored, rejected, or even punished. So they adapted. They learned to depend on themselves, to rely on distance as a shield, to equate love with danger or instability. And when that's your foundation, letting someone in, especially someone who makes you feel, isn't just hard. It's scary as hell. So what do they do instead? They show up in little quiet ways. They make an effort, and that effort for them is monumental. You might get a simple "good morning" text. Doesn't seem like much, right? But for them, that text might have taken 10 minutes of internal back and forth. Should I send it? Will I seem needy? What if I get too close and mess this up? But they do it anyway, because you matter. Or maybe they ask how your day was, casually, as if it's no big deal. But it is a big deal. Because for someone who usually avoids emotional intimacy, inviting you to share even the small details of your life is their way of saying, "I want to understand you. I want to connect." Even if they don't know how to say it with their words, they're saying it through action. Sometimes their effort is hidden in routine. They show up on time. They keep their word. They help you fix something without being asked. They're not trying to sweep you off your feet with grand gestures. They're trying to anchor you and themselves in something that feels safe and steady. That consistency, that reliability, it's how they express care. And here's the truth. They don't do these things for everyone. Avoidants tend to keep people at arm's length. They protect their energy fiercely. So if they're making space for you, even if it's not perfect, even if it's messy, that means you're not just anyone. You've pierced through a layer of defense that most never get past. It's easy to overlook these signs if you're expecting love to look like constant affection or emotional vulnerability on demand. But love doesn't always look the way you think it should. It looks like effort. It looks like a person showing up again and again, even when every part of them is screaming to run. It looks like someone trying to figure out how to love when love has always been a battlefield for them. And here's the powerful part. When you start to notice their effort, really notice it, you realize something deeper is happening. They're not just doing these things for you. They're doing them despite themselves. They're choosing to override years of self-protection because something about you feels worth it. You're not just someone they care about. You're someone they're willing to grow for. That's not just effort. That's vulnerability in its rawest, realest form. So don't dismiss the small things. Don't underestimate the quiet gestures. Because for someone who's wired to withdraw, every little reach toward you is a massive leap of faith. And that leap, that's love. Not loud, not flashy, but deep, intentional, and brave. And maybe that's the kind of love that lasts. For someone with an avoidant attachment style, the instinct to run is hardwired. It's not always conscious. It's a defense mechanism, one built up over years of protecting themselves from emotional pain. When intimacy starts to feel real, when someone begins to get close, their alarm bells go off. Suddenly, love feels threatening, like something that could shatter their sense of safety. And so, they do what they've always done. They pull away. But sometimes they don't. Sometimes they stay. And when they do, you need to understand just how significant that is. Because for an avoidant, staying isn't the easy choice. It's the hardest one. It means they are actively pushing against the one thing that's kept them safe for most of their life: distance. When you're close to someone like that, and you see them pause instead of retreat, stay silent instead of lashing out, or choose to be present when everything in them says leave, that's love in one of its bravest forms. Avoidants are not heartless. They're not incapable of love. They feel everything deeply, but those feelings are complicated by fear. Love has strings attached. It asks for presence, for honesty, for vulnerability. All the things that make them feel exposed. When you fight the urge to run, you're choosing to trust. And for someone who's avoidant, trust is not given freely. It's earned, and it's fragile. So, if you're with someone like this and you start to see them stay when they used to disappear, don't overlook it. That's a breakthrough. That's a person who is relearning what it means to love and be loved. It might not come with grand statements or sudden emotional availability, but it shows up in their presence, in their quiet choice to stay beside you when it would be easier for them to protect themselves by leaving. Maybe they stay through an argument instead of walking away. Maybe they don't respond with silence like they used to. Maybe they just breathe through the discomfort of emotional closeness instead of numbing out or shutting down. These are not small things. These are huge victories in a mind wired for escape. Their staying doesn't mean they're suddenly healed or fearless. It means they're fighting for something, for you, for connection. And that's where real love lives, not in perfection, but in the effort to resist old patterns. Every time they don't run, they're choosing the relationship over their reflex. That's not weakness, it's strength. It's a sign that you matter enough for them to try and unlearn what they've believed for so long. That closeness always ends in pain. Think about how deep that goes. Imagine being someone who has always believed that love equals risk, who's been hurt or neglected or shamed for expressing needs. And now you're with someone who's asking you to stay, who's offering patience instead of pressure, who's creating a space where maybe, just maybe, love can feel safe. That's transformative. And if you're the one loving someone like this, it can be tough. You might not always see the love the way you're used to, but if they're staying, even when it's hard, even when they're scared, that is love. That's the slow, courageous, quiet kind. The kind that builds trust moment by moment. The kind that doesn't just survive the hard parts, but chooses to walk through them over and over again. Don't look for the easy signs. Look for the resistance, the choice to remain close when every part of them is begging to retreat. That's where the love is. Not in the words, not in the big gestures, but in the decision to stay, to try, to keep showing up even when it goes against every instinct they've used to protect their heart. So when they stay, see them, see the strength it takes, see the fear they're fighting, and most of all, see the love underneath it all. Because that kind of love, that's real, that's earned, and that's worth everything. Letting someone in is never easy for an avoidant. In fact, it's one of the hardest things they will ever do. These are the people who learned early on that vulnerability comes with a price. Maybe they were emotionally neglected. Maybe they were made to feel like their needs were too much. Or maybe every time they opened up, they were met with disappointment. So they closed themselves off, not because they didn't feel, but because feeling openly became dangerous. And so they built walls, quiet ones, invisible ones, but strong and high and carefully guarded. And yet something begins to shift when they love you. It's not loud, it's not obvious, it's subtle, almost imperceptible, until one day you realize they're letting you in, bit by bit. You'll notice it in the way they start sharing pieces of their life with you. Not the big stuff, not yet. But maybe they tell you about a song they like, or a memory from their childhood. Maybe they mention something that made them anxious today. These things might seem small on the surface, but don't be fooled, they're huge. For someone avoidant, letting you in on their inner world means they're starting to trust you with something they usually keep locked away. This kind of trust doesn't happen overnight. It's built in layers. They might tell you something personal and then pull back for a bit. That's not because they're playing games or being distant. It's because opening up feels raw, exposing, scary. They're testing the water. Will you judge them? Will you leave? Will you use this against them later? These are questions running silently in their mind. So if they share and you stay, calm, kind, non-reactive, they take another step forward, another inch towards closeness. This process can be confusing. One day they might feel completely open, and the next they retreat. But this push and pull isn't manipulation. It's self-preservation. It's someone learning, slowly, that maybe you're safe. Maybe they don't have to be so guarded all the time. Maybe they can be seen, truly seen, and not abandoned. And when they do start to open up in deeper ways, when they tell you about the things that scare them, the things they regret, or the dreams they barely admit to themselves, that is their version of saying, I trust you. I want you to know me. I want to be close, even if it's terrifying. That's their love language. Not flowers, not grand speeches, but presence, honesty, letting you see behind the armor. Letting you in doesn't mean they stop being afraid. It means they're brave despite the fear. They're choosing to risk something they've avoided for most of their life. And they're doing it because you matter, because something in you makes them feel like maybe, just maybe, love can look different this time. If you're in a relationship with someone like this, your patience matters more than you know. You're not just loving them, you're helping them rewire everything they thought they knew about intimacy. You're showing them through consistency and compassion that closeness doesn't have to hurt, that it's okay to be known, that it's safe to be real. And when they let you in, even just a little, don't minimize it, don't miss it, celebrate it, even silently, because what they're offering you isn't just information or stories, it's a piece of themselves, a piece they've kept hidden from most of the world. That kind of trust, that's sacred. So if you see someone who's avoidant slowly starting to open their heart, know that what you're witnessing is not weakness, it's not hesitation, it's courage. It's a battle between fear and love. And every time they let you in, love is winning. Even if it's quiet, even if it's slow. That's transformation. That's trust. That's love, learning how to breathe. So here's the truth. Loving someone with an avoidant attachment style doesn't come wrapped in fairy tale packaging. It's not always easy, it's not always linear, but it is real and it is meaningful, especially when you begin to recognize the quiet, powerful ways they show up for you. When an avoidant loves you, it doesn't look like the movies. It looks like subtle shifts, soft bravery, and hard-won steps toward closeness. It looks like them staying in the room when they want to run, like them reaching out when every instinct says pull away, like them letting you into the spaces they've kept locked for years, maybe forever. Every time they let you in, every time they choose to stay, every time they share something vulnerable or make space for your presence in their life, they are doing something extraordinary. They are choosing love over fear, and that choice is never small. So don't dismiss the quiet. Don't overlook the awkward effort. Don't measure their love by how loud it is. Measure it by how much they're trying. Because every time they lean in when it would be easier to lean out, they are loving you in the deepest way they know how. And maybe that's the most beautiful kind of love, the kind that's not performative but earned, not loud but true, not perfect but brave. If you're lucky enough to be loved by an avoidant, and you're willing to meet their effort with your own patience and understanding, you'll witness something powerful, a love that heals as it grows, a love that step by step learns to stay.